Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my very first ZANE build guide. In this video I'll be showing you what I call the Speed Demon ZANE build. You'll be moving at the speed of light and killing enemies even faster with this movement speed and gun damage focused build. But before we continue with the video, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more amazing Borderlands 3 content. It really helps me out and I really appreciate it, plus you'll always have something to watch. It's a win-win. Now let's begin. First up, what is the build focused on? Like I said in the intro, this build is all about increasing your movement speed and raising your gun damage through ability activation and kill skills. You'll be activating both your abilities to get your kill skills up and running, and you'll continue massacring your enemies to make those skills and your abilities last as long as humanly possible. If you want to get this build up and running immediately, or you just want to skip my long explanation and in-depth analysis of every skill for this build, put points into these skills and these skill trees that you see right now. This is the build and all the skills associated with it, and here are all the benefits. You can also skip to this time in the video for all the recommended weapons, gear, and how to actually use the build while you're playing. For those that want the deep analysis, here we go. We're going to be starting in the Hitman tree. This is where we're going to be finding most of our kill skills. First up, we're going to be putting 5 points into violent speed and 5 points into violent momentum. These two skills work together perfectly. With violent speed, killing an enemy will increase your movement speed by 25% for 8 seconds, and violent momentum increases your gun damage by 20% at default walking speed. This means your speed will be increased by 25% and the damage by 20%, not factoring in the increase in movement speed. So really it's like increasing your gun damage by 25-ish%. I'm not that great at math, but it works out to be somewhere around that. Next, we'll be putting in 5 points into Cool Hand. This increases our reload speed by 13% normally and 20% after getting a kill. This just takes away the downtime of reloading and overall should increase our DPS, since when you're not firing, you're not doing damage. And we're going to put 4 points into Salvation, which is another kill skill that gives us 8% of our damage dealt as health back for 8 seconds. This is going to help keep us alive. Since we're dealing massive damage, we'll be getting a ton of health back, so it should keep us up and running. Then we're going to be getting Death Follows Close. This increases the bonus of our kill skills by 25% and their duration by 7 seconds. This one skill is one of the best and most important in this build because it affects all of our kill skills. So we're going to be moving even faster, reloading even faster, doing even more gun damage. It just stacks on top of everything. This increases our movement speed, which increases our gun damage. Then this skill increases our gun damage even more. I know it's kind of complicated, just know that this is making everything 25% better and lasts 7 seconds longer. Moving on, we'll be putting 5 points into Violent Violence, which is going to increase our fire rate by 25% for 15 seconds. And if you're firing faster, you're doing more damage, so this is always, it's a good helpful skill. Then we get all 3 points of Good Misfortune. This is a kill skill that increases our action skill duration for each kill, but it diminishes the more kills we get. This helps us keep our drone and clone active, and you'll see why that's important when we hop over to the doubled agent tree. Just for now, know that it keeps your drone and clone up, which helps our DPS and gives the enemy something else to shoot at, as well for other benefits later on in the other skill tree. Finally, we're grabbing the last perk in this tree, Seeing Red. This skill is how we start every fight. Get all of our kill skills active and how we start our snowballing effect. This skill activates all kill skills whenever we use an action skill. So when we throw out our drone or clone, Violent Violence, Playing Dirty, Cool Hand, and Violent Speed will be activated. This just insanely buffs us and lets us start the killing so we can have that massive movement speed and damage buffs for a longer period of time. But before we move over to the next skill tree, we're going to equip the Bad Dose and Static Field augments for our drone. Bad Dose will cause our drone to randomly weaken enemies with its radiation beam, which will increase our fire rate by 2% per enemy, and our movement speed will be increased by 6% per enemy. Also, the beams do more damage and will cause our drone to do more damage overall. Then we have Static Field, which takes the shields from our enemies and gives them to us. It really doesn't help us that much, but it's better than all the other augments left after Bad Dose, and it helps us survive if we ever get into a tricky spot. Now we're going to be hopping over to the doubled agent skill tree. Here we'll be immediately putting 5 points into Synchronicity and 5 points into Borrowed Time. Synchronicity will increase our gun damage by 20% per active action skill, so 40% when we have both our drone and clone out. Then Borrowed Time increases our action skill duration by 15% per action skill, or 30% when we have both active. This helps us keep our gun damage buff and the Supersonic Man buff we pick up later in the skill tree. Next, we'll be putting all 5 points into Donnybrook. This kill skill increases our gun damage for ourselves and our clone by 19%, and it gives us 3.1% of our missing health per second. All this lasts for 15 seconds. So not only does it increase our damage by 19%, but it also increases our clone's damage, which of course helps. Plus we get a little bit of our health back per second, and it helps us stay alive, which is always a good thing. Moving on, we'll be getting Quick Breather. This just causes our shields to immediately start regenerating whenever we swap places with our clone. This helps us survive. If we ever get caught in a really tight spot, we can just swap places with the clone and let that take the damage while we run away and let our shields recharge. The last skill we'll be putting points into is Supersonic Man, which we'll be putting all 3 points into. This increases our movement speed by 12% per active action skill, so 24% with both action skills activated. This of course interacts with Violent Speed and Violent Momentum. Our movement speed is getting buffed, which increases our damage with the Violent Momentum skill even more. Finally, equip the Schadenfreude and Digital Distribution action skill augments. Both of these augments increase our survivability by letting the clone take damage for us and by replenishing our shields. Schadenfreude causes our shields to get restored whenever our clone takes damage, and Digital Distribution gives 75% of our health damage to our clone. So while our clone is active, we only take 25% of our actual health damage. To conclude with our skills explanation, almost every skill we have interacts with another skill. Some skills increase our movement speed, which stacks with other skills that increase our movement speed. Then those skills interact with the skills that increase our gun damage and make our action skills last longer. So overall, you'll be moving fast, dealing a ton of gun damage. Your action skills are going to be up for an insane amount of time if you keep killing. And the build just really works in a cycle. You know, you get kills, which replenish your kill skills, which help you kill stuff, which replenish your kill skills. It's just one big happy slaughter circle. Hopping over to the gear section, I think this build is very open when it comes to gear selection. The only things you need to keep in mind is that you're going to be moving very fast, and most of the time you'll never be sitting still. So pick weapons that can be hip-fired very accurately and easy. Other than that, pick the best weapons you have, the ones with the most damage and the highest fire rate. My recommendations would be the Hellwalker shotgun, since it's fast, deals a ton of damage, and can be hip-fired very easily. The Laser Exploder, now this assault rifle deals a ton of damage, has a ton of projectiles, in addition to a beam that will tick more with the fire rate buffs, and if you get an elemental roll on your weapon, it's even better. The Flood, this Jacob's pistol fires in full auto and can put out a lot of damage very quickly while you're moving. And also the Flacker is a great choice. It deals massive damage and can cover an area, hitting multiple enemies at once. If you have one, I definitely recommend using it to kill several weaker enemies at once, which will give you your health and your kill skills and all that stuff. Now those are what I run with and do a ton of damage with, but if you don't have any of those, you can always farm to get them, or you can just use whatever you want, and this build is still going to work pretty well for you. As for the shields, I would just pick something with a ton of shields. You'll be running around and almost never standing in cover, so you need a shield that can take a lot of damage since you can't hide and let them recharge. The grenade mod doesn't really matter, since you won't be using grenades like literally at all. For the class mod, try to find something that puts points into violent speed, momentum, or violence. These skills are some of your most important since they buff your movement speed and the damage you deal while moving fast. And finally, for the relic, find a relic that increases your shields or fire rate. If you want to put even more DPS out, find a relic that increases your fire rate. And if you want a bit more survivability, find a relic that increases your shields or health. Now that we have the right skills picked, the right gear equipped, let's dig into how to use this build in action. At the start of every fight, you're going to want to use both your action skills. This is going to activate all your kill skills and the skills that only buff you while your action skill is active. Right now you're insanely buffed, especially in the movement speed department, so you're going to want to run around and take out as many of the weaker targets as you can. Getting these early kills ensures that your kill skills stay up. After that, you can start attacking the tankier enemies. Since you have stacks of your kill skills, you can probably take them out very easily. And you have that lifesteal on one of your skills, so you should be able to stay up relatively easily. If you start getting killed or your shields are broken, swap places with your clone. This gets you out of a tough situation, and you can run towards the weaker targets or any enemies you have damaged, so you can kill them and keep your skills up. This build is pretty straightforward. Run towards the enemies and kill them to keep your kill skills up and increase your action skill duration. If you get hurt, swap places with your clone and find the weak enemies and kill them and, keep everything up. It's simple and it works extremely well. Just run around, shoot stuff, have fun. The only problem with this build is when you're farming bosses. If there are any bosses that don't have weak enemies in the arena, it's a tough time farming them. For example, Mouthpiece is an easy farm because of all the psychos around him that you can kill to keep your skills up. Graveward is the exact opposite. You can't keep your skills up at all, which leads to a long cycle of throwing out both of your abilities and dealing a ton of damage, just massive damage. Then waiting for them to recharge while dealing a very small amount of damage. Then activating your abilities again to deal more damage, and it just repeats itself over and over again. But for the Proving Grounds, Circles of Slaughter, and leveling, this build is amazing and does its job very well. If you enjoyed this video or you're going to use this build on your Zane, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. These build videos take forever to make and I put a ton of work into them, So it'd be really awesome if you guys support this type of content by leaving a comment and subscribing to the channel. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm the Battle Moon, and I will see you in the Borderlands.